This is the Nephew SDK weekly meeting on what's today? February 6, 2024. Okay, so anyone has anything that they want to talk about before we get started? Cool. Yeah, go ahead.
No.
Mm-hmm.
No, nothing specific. Sorry.
Yeah. Well, as promised last week, I'm filing a bunch of issues. That is extremely preliminary. It's not comprehensive. So feel free to file more as you see fit, and then link it on here. So we'll be able to. You can see my screen, right? Hopefully.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So link it over here. So this is just very preliminary. And I think a while back we were asking, are we doing it on experimental before going into the SDK repo? I don't see like a really big difference unless there. I mean, there's one particular one where I think this is probably more POC-ish, because again, I'm filing the issues, not saying that, and as you probably read from the comments of the issues, I'm not explicit on saying exactly what to do. So like any development task, what we expect is owners would go in and take the area and maybe investigate, or maybe people who have other areas that they want, they can file that as a task under the epic, and then whoever volunteered as a contributor should do a design on the piece and see whether or not this and then kind of see. We'll iterate on the design. You can file further task under the task for the design, or under the epic for the design, and then someone should approve the workflow when I was in 6.3 anyway. Is that we agree on is a design doc needs to go in first before code goes in. I know we haven't been really enforcing this at all, but then hopefully at some point we will. So we'll get a design where everyone agree on a design, so that implementation would probably be a significant smaller number of people reviewing the implementations. I would think. Yeah, the one things that I would say is more POC-ish at this point. Again, design hasn't done yet, but then something that we have to verify. This is where the POC actually is useful. Is I don't think we've done using the Flux and the Helm controllers to deploy the Towards 5.js Helm charts. I don't think there's anything really special on this, but then before you can do a development, which in this case would be the actual operator code that you have to do, you have to actually kind of make sure that what the config map looks like, and how the translate part is the development part, so that should go into the main repo. But at least in the POC sense, would like to see someone actually published what the config map looks like. Yeah, go ahead, Fiacre.
Yeah, just I'd have to refresh my memory, but I'm pretty sure we tested the Free5GC Helm charts.
Oh, you did? Okay.
And had some issues.
Oh, you have issues. You did it with Operator SDK. I know that, but then did you use it with Flux? Oh, I didn't even spell Flux correctly. Sorry.
I'm pretty sure. I would have to refresh my memory, but I'm pretty sure we tried the Free5GC Helm charts with the Flux deployment model. But I'm pretty sure we did hit issues. Yeah, I know. Like with the Operator SDK, definitely.
Yeah, Operator SDK. You said you can't do the whole bundle, which is actually okay because you can do chart by chart.
Yes. Yeah, I think actually we ran into some version problems because I think the Helm-based version we had was newer than the operators. It was around that, and then the networking.
Okay.
Yeah,
but that was probably 6 months ago.
Yeah, I'd have to refresh.
I wonder if they have actually updated yet. I know that at one point they've done they meaning Orange, folks from Orange actually done a lot of work on updating, but and it kind of coincide with Nefio actually, but then I don't think it has done much since, so there's a config change. But yeah, let's whoever wants to go ahead and try it to see if it works. If it has issues, let us know. We'll try to figure it out then, because this is obviously one of the parts, one of the gating parts of actually Helm onboarding. So we want to make sure that this works, and then the code emulates generating a config map that emulates the values.yaml. We even more than that, we have to understand how you install, how you bring it up, what version works, and things like this. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, sorry. Yeah.
Sorry, I was on a different topic.
Oh, okay.
Than this one. My proposal would be this. Okay. To prove before we put in the code into Nefio or whatever, right? We should do a demo. You can put the code anywhere, but we should do a demo to see whether the approach that we have is making sense or not, right? Because here is where I'm coming from, Steven. Okay. I have a framework in mind to do this that would require no code. I mean, you would not, for a specific implementation, of course there will be code. For a specific implementation, there would be no code. I mean, it's just a set of configuration. That would be, for me, the ideal thing. Because, see, you're competing with Helm. Okay? If you look at Helm, it's not through, I mean, it's templates, right?
Yeah.
So for me, that's the ultimate, I see that as the ultimate thing. Because that means that you are very flexible to
competing with Helm is strong, but then we're trying to onboard using existing Helm, and then we are sort of asking vendors in a way to say, let's shut down all the other operations that you want to do with Helm. Helm is sort of limited to just deployment, and then if we have any changes on the objects that we go through Helm, we would still go through Helm on the workload clusters. Hopefully it doesn't actually touch the management cluster too much. But then so that's sort of the intent. I think when the proposal was made that we Nefio should, to a TSC actually, Kieran actually being one of them, but make that proposal to a TSC that vendors are asking us to support Helm. One of them is, we all know this, is investment protection. So we have to protect the Helm charts that are working. We're not competing with Helm. I know Brian Grant, when we had the first summit, was very strong words saying that we're replacing Helm or something. But obviously, we're not looking to do that. In a way, we are posting Helm as a first-class citizen. So we use Helm executions. We use Helm charts unmodified to bring them up. But then we are also making more of a stand by saying that if you use Helm plugins and all the other things to do day-to operations, if you're on board to Nefio, let Nefio do it. But even then, So in that case, yes, if you have a way, by the way, if you have a way to say templatize, no code, and able to get to a values.yaml type stuff, and we can minimize the coding effort from the vendors. I would love to have that actually. But then there are some like high level functional requirements, which is the vendors have a hopefully unmodified Helm charts to bring in. Whether or not we actually support a Helm execution engine at all, I think it's not really that important. But then it's just that I think if we reinvent it, it's probably going to be a lot of effort.
No, I'm not reinventing it, by the way. So just to be clear, what I'm trying to say is, okay. So what I was trying to say is this, right? So we have Helm today, right? So we had all the free 5GC with Helm, right, available today, and we basically build a bunch of code to do the same, right?
Yes.
So we have basically said probably not the right approach, right? Too much work, too much effort.
No. So the operator execution part, yeah. So the thing that we're still providing in this the automation, the possibility of automating the inputs into the Helm charts, and obviously moving forward, hopefully we have a much, because the operators are not, it's a strong word, but then usually Kubernetes operators are not being used for deployment purposes. They're used for continuously reconciling purposes. So we'd like to emphasize on that aspect, and then basically just say, hey, Helm, the deployment part, day one stuff belongs to you, so go ahead and grab it. Nephew wants to help you automating the illuminating like repeated parameters and all that stuff into your chart on using Porch. And specialization. But then at the same time, we don't want the operators to do like deployments and config maps and stuff. So that should be offloaded, because it's much better for them to do it. But then beyond this, if we do anything on day 2, we hopefully people will realize an operator framework would be good, because this is the Helm thing get all our attentions, but it's to me quite minor moving forward to really display on the workload cluster side Nephew's purpose or values. It's much more important that we actually slowly morph into a much nicer operator framework. But yeah, I agree with you. So there are 2 things. One thing, you said that we can do it without code. I would love to see that. So that's great.
No. But what I'm trying to say is an operator without code that you can do, I think, right?
So you have some sort of default operators, and then vendors would not have to actually do anything. We just load the templates and
so the business logic is taken care of by a set of configuration data, basically, right? That so executes business logic. So, but under the hood, there is still a controller, right? So just don't get me wrong.
Yes.
So it's still, but so which means that you don't really have to write any code.
Okay.
Of course.
Okay.
We have to write the engine.
So the main suggestions actually. So even from Tandon, he was telling me that maybe we should have a YAML that translate one object to like the values.yaml requirements, and then basically just run that through the pipeline. So there are ways to skin the cat, but then I think generally we are creating enough of the final fully resolved values.yaml, and then feed it into Helm is basically the core of this exercise or support. Again, I'm not against doing POC. It's just that there are pieces that we should go in, and then there are things where the experimental, which I actually rejected in the beginning, if I remember, have purpose that are really wide range. And then one thing that I probably do not want to see is things that are going to be slated to go in, sits on experimental, but then the PL becomes humongously big.
Oh, but my proposal is not experimental. My proposal was to do a POC, right?
Okay,
on which we believe that the basis is right, where the code sits. But what I'm trying to say is, let's not push it immediately to an FEO, because then it becomes like de facto, which might not serve us right in.
No, even something goes in the FEO, we can iterate. So if we do it, this is, let's say for release 3, we have one mechanism, and then someone came in and said that there's some way better mechanisms to do it. It's the same way that we are part of this exercise. We are kind of deprecating the old 3.5GC operator. So iterations happens. So we are okay. We should be open to that. But yeah, I mean, we're okay we need an integration repo, because I hope it's more than just me.
But if we believe that the approach is not right yet, then I think it should go to experimental.
That's fine. I mean, it's okay. It's just that we have to do it, and then understanding that we'll have a pathway to go in, and then there is a target that we should deliver something by R3. Just like any features that it should iterate in the future, but then we should get the community to reach a certain consensus. But we shouldn't be sitting on the side and then saying that when the time comes, suddenly it gets shut off by L3 because it's such a big chunk of code sitting somewhere else. So that's actually the major worry.
No, but I think, see, if we all believe that the approach we are going to is right, and then I don't have a problem to iterate upon it in Nephew. If we believe that the approach is not right yet, then I have a problem putting it in Nephew straight.
So because we've had the approach discussions for over a whole release cycle already. I wonder if we go back to that.
No. Now we are talking. So I'm not talking about that approach. I'm talking about the approach to achieve the goal, right? So the goal to replace the code that we have, if you will.
Yes. Okay.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Not. But Kieran has his hands up, so maybe.
Sorry. It's been sorry. Go ahead.
Sorry, just trying to get off mute. I'm not entirely sure what my point is now, but are we? I guess to go back to your original slides, Stephen, and then we talk about what concrete sort of activities we're going to execute on to demonstrate some functionality in R3. My understanding was that you were proposing that we can take, for example, a Helm chart from a vendor, run it through an SDK CLI, which will generate some kind of an operator, which would encapsulate some of the values.yaml parameters and provide a mechanism for the operator, for the system administrator or the network operator to effectively onboard their workload using Helm under the hood, but hiding that away from the end user, which I don't know, is that still the case here or what?
Yes, yeah. So all the steps are moving towards this. So in fact, you load your Helm charts on a Git repo, and then we'll access the code, well, the whatever execution, and what Flux or something else would be reading from that Helm charts and then load it in. So the business logic is responsible for taking the NF deployment plus the vendor extensions into what is needed for values.yaml. And then at that point, we have enough information as an input. The Helm execution engines would presumably do their own thing. And then your business logic is also responsible for reporting the status of that Helm execution, of that Helm install, or some other things that you do, Helm templates, and then you apply them directly on your operators. That's up to you. And then.
But presumably the SDK will take an opinionated decision on that rather than leaving it to the.
So for R3, we probably pointed to one particular directions. It's not like we have a lot of people. So it's not like so we always said that we want to be very inclusive, and then the people who have different approaches. They can certainly do it. The Samson folks, for example, has the Helm 2 operators, and then perhaps they will take that and then create other backend operators, which isn't NF deployment based. But then NF deployment can communicate with that operators, and then operators will be watching some CLDs that are probably generated from your Helm charts, and then it would then apply it by physically calling the by actually calling the individual Kubernetes API calls to load the object, to load the to do the deployments on the workload clusters.
Yeah, they're using the templating mechanism as
basically that operator acts like a Helm execution engine in a way. Which is also fine. So if that's what the vendors want, we want to be inclusive, and we should support that. It's just that I want to be realistic, that we are in February. I have no idea when L3 is going to happen, but then it's not going to be that long. I don't think L3 is December. So we probably have one mechanisms to show it works. And as Vim said, hopefully the community in general, as we develop, it's not like I say something and you guys all reach consensus. Obviously, it doesn't happen. And then so as we iterate, as we build it, hopefully we have an approach that has consensus. Let's say Flux, and then that would be what we ship with on the SDK, but then as we said, even Flux may be what we do for Nephew release on our 3.5 operators generated by SDK happens to be using Flux. It doesn't mean that this is a, let me see if we can update that. Flex instead of Flux. then it doesn't mean that we'll restrict people from using other things. I hope it doesn't. So the way the SDK was built shouldn't be saying that, oh, we would only be using Flux. I think what we talked about last week was when the NF2 infra dependencies engine, or whatever it's called, is available, is ready, then it's more like a metadata that we have to agree upon with that subgroup, and then we'll encode it by saying that in order for this NF package to be deployed, you need to deploy Flux and some other things. So we're looking at that as like a framework instead of saying that, oh, the SDK mandated that you have to use Flux. I don't want to see happen for sure. But the goal really is, I think what we sort of talk about over this several weeks since January is Helm onboarding is definitely the focus of R3. I don't really think we'll do much of anything else. We'll try to, one of the things that I pitch is, let's not repeat writing execution engines. So we'll separate it out, the templates, execution engines, and the NF deployments and the translation business logic. And I think that everyone agreed. And no, I don't think we will converge on one single execution engine. It could be a variety, and we should support the variety. And then your template is basically Helm charts. So this is, I think the consensus we also reach is we are open to having the Helm charts be on a Git repo. So someone from workload cluster reads it from the Git repo. And then business logic is what you have to implement on the SDK. So I basically just kind of follow on that sense on filing this set of issues. Again, these are not the only issues. Some of the issues maybe not, it doesn't make sense, and maybe we can drop it. But then this is more preliminary set, so we can start executing. Now that our SimSci R2 is shipping, Vala's here, so SimSci R2 is good. And then we should be squarely into R3 cycle. I think that's one thing that Tao, as the chair, emphasizes a lot is what we learned from particular R2 cycle is we shouldn't wait. And R2 is a little special because R2 is the second half of the year. So I'm sure hopefully the first half of the year is not as hectic for folks, contributors. So that's the whole intent. So hopefully we can start kicking off the task. Okay. Yeah. So to level set on the requirements, as we said earlier, Helm onboarding aiming for no change on the vendor existing Helm charts. So we shouldn't, the exercise we do, it shouldn't change the 3.5GC Helm charts. So maybe there will be some changes on our NF deployment CLD. Or maybe there's something the NAD would have to go into the workload clusters and stuff like that. So we'll see how that goes. So this is more implementation details moving forward. But then that's the goal. That's one of the goals. Yeah, that's pretty much it. and then it's on Git repo. So yeah, any updates if it doesn't change anything. That's one of the test case that we want to see. If you have a Helm chart upgrade, but it doesn't change the business logic, and there's no NF deployment changes, then we should be able to just upload the Helm charts, and then update a CLD, update a CL somewhere in the package by telling folks that this is the new version of the chart that you're supposed to look at, and then when we trigger deployments, it'll read the latest Helm charts. Go ahead, Fiacre.
Maybe not a very relevant question, but in terms of the learnings from, like, you guys spent a lot in terms, so essentially you did the same thing, right? You took the Helm charts, you built a set of operators around those Helm charts and CRDs to kind of fit that use case, right?
You mean what, for R1 or for R1?
Yeah, for 3.5GC,
so,
right?
So for 3.5GC, how I started is we get that Helm charts that I try and worked, so I know it works. And then I started off just writing it off. As I said, the technical reasons why we're doing something so dumb is because we want the operators to own the NF config. And then for 3.5GC, the NF config happens to be real text in config map, a template that sits in the config map that converts into config map, and the config map mounted on a pod spec, so that we have to also own deployment. So technically, we don't have to own service, but then I wrote a UPF first, which has no service. So that's why everything gets conversion to that.
But I guess
So
my
that was
point
the
is
idea.
like,
The idea is deployment,
Yeah.
because that's all the Torch 5GS Helm charts are doing. There's no day 2 or anything operations. It's just the deployment. And then I took that Helm charts, tested it, it worked. Very early version. Right now it works even better, but then back then it worked. And then based on that, if I do Helm templates of that, I just want to generate something similar by making a full translation of that deployment and config map into an actual API call in the code.
Yeah. But I guess in terms of that learning, I'm just wondering, like, you would know better, and Vim and whoever else, but you would know, in terms of learnings from that, could they be applied to this scenario or some of this scenario, or is it totally different in terms?
So the reasoning, not reasoning, there's obviously a real, business is a strong word, but project requirements that we want to make it as easy as possible for vendors to onboard. This is not the way you're writing operators is not. Fully translate your operators into Go code is not an easy way to onboard. And there's technical difficulties that I can immediately see by doing so. For example, I think Helm, if you reapply Helm, if there's update on deployment, you update deployment, which is fine. Right now we own deployment objects in the operators. So if there's config changes, we also correspondingly update annotations on the deployment object. So it triggers a reboot of the pod. So something similar would pretty much have to happen using Helm, because we no longer owns the object. We we meaning the operator no longer owns the deployment object. So things like this are probably how we, as we are coding, we'll find out more and more about this. That are hairy. But then the goal doesn't change, because right now the entry barrier is so strong. I don't think it's the project is not mature enough to attract vendors. You're from vendor, you should know, to get on board.
But this is purely,
by the time even by the time we get into like clear values provided by Nephew, it's still going to take a very long development cycles for vendors to get on board. So this is one way. And then Helm, to be honest, from what I know for the vendors that we have engaged, that's like 90% of the cases. They have existing Helm charts, and if we can just allow them to get in, at least for day 1, that would be great. Now day 2, how to ease up day 2 logic is a really, really big thing that we have to do moving forward. But then let's not tackle that like immediately for R3. So if we can translate what we did on R1 and R2 on the 3.5GC operators, then have the SDK generate that, but then fully the execution part, the execution engine, I call execution engine, meaning the thing that invokes the Kubernetes APIs, and then tracking it, obviously, and then the template are all something that can just be brought in directly from the vendors. That would be awesome. There's still some entry barrier. You have to write code to translate your business logic into the Nephew CLDs plus whatever CLD that you as a vendor define into what the input needed into the Helm charts. So that business logic never goes away. So we can ease that one out. But then we should make it such that you only do this. And then if this is the only thing you do, as Vim said, there may be a possibility that this one little business logic you may not even need to write code, which I do agree that we can move towards that for sure. That would be great. Yeah. So that's the goal. That would be, I think, the short-term R3 goal. I would say established to be that. Hopefully that no one object to that. And then so we move toward this, and then hopefully so from that I'm just doing some of this are just frameworks that has nothing to do with anything, but then we can start it with looking at this, and then you can come back and tell me it's bogus, and then maybe file a different task. That's fine too. It's just more like kicking off the execution of the project. Cool. Is the goal, does the goal sound far-fetched, or not something the folks are looking for? Because I'm actually serving the vendors in this case, so I'm not really a vendor, quote unquote. I'm from the infra provider side.
So who is going to do build a POC is my question.
Yeah, for sure. Yes. So we'll do an integrations, and then demo it. Hopefully.
No, but who is going to build one is what I'm. Who is going to contribute?
So now I'm doing this. So if folks are interested and pick it up, so that would be the questions. Pick up something, and then we'll do. So I think there's a good milestone from now till R3 that we can use that as a milestone. The milestone would be the O&E summit. So if we can move towards building a demo sometime before the O&E summit, that would give us a very good enough time, I would imagine, to go from that to, if we have to do any direction things, pivots or anything, we can still hopefully do something for R3. So that would be, that didn't make a good point. So yeah, let's do that as a POC.
But who from the people here on the call, Stephen, are going to
contribute? Yeah, so this will be the next thing too. Yes, good point to pivot. So if folks are interested, sign up, and we can sort of go over some of this. Obviously, we need a CLI framework to even demo. We need to like Nephew SDK -- blah 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 to get started. So the nice gentleman who came here last time from the Operator SDK team said it is very easily extensible. So I actually went and looked into the code, Operator SDK code. How do they leverage Kube Builder? We can do something similar. I actually don't see the Operator SDK CLI extension anywhere, to be honest. So it'd be nice to go into that community and ask them how that works. But then on the other hand, it's actually not that hard to emulate Operator SDK.
Sorry, Stephen, this is the same guy you're talking about who I brought up.
Yeah, obviously the folks that you brought in. I don't
okay,
remember
cool. So I mean, if it works, if it's needed, I can try to request them to come to the meeting again. Do you think that's helpful? One more meeting.
Yeah.
Whenever
sure.
you're ready.
Sure. Yeah, sure.
I mean, if you have,
you need to be prepared.
You
need to be prepared because this is specifically to the CLI extension, Stephen.
Yeah,
right?
CLI extensions. So we will be because the whole point is we should be able to embed within our core. So even if we install Nephew SDK, means that you also install as part of the installations either Kube Builder or Operator SDK. It should be embedded inside, and then the whole point is I would hope to get the create API type functions, and make generate type functions to be as free as possible for us, for the Nephew side of the contributors. So the Nephew people should not be redoing like make generates and make install and all that stuff. So I would like to leverage as much as possible, either Kube Builder or Operator SDK. I don't really have a preference. Operator SDK allows you to also do Ansibles and all the other things which could be useful in the future. So that's great to have. But then looking at the code yesterday or last week, I don't see anything very obvious at this point. So it would be great to get. I was going to engage the Operator SDK Slack and try to see on the Slack.
Awesome.
Questions.
Thanks.
But then
please let me know if I can bring someone. I can do that. Thanks. Yeah.
Thank you. So this is one. So to just kickstart it, do that, and then obviously how you actually add CLI, you probably want to document, because I would imagine more other contributors, when they add functionalities, would have to add to the CLI. It's not like you're the owner of CLI, then everything goes through you. I hope contributors who add features also knows how to add CLI. And then the second one is we have a default reconciler. So it's more like a dummy. So if you do a create API today and say yes to controller, you have the controller directory that has a reconciler already created and main.go actually on top. And that reconciler is all stubs. So for us, it's a step either slightly further than that. We, as Nephew, if you're on board in Nephew, we sort of wanted your operator, not wanted, mandated. I think it's a strong word, but it's probably true, that your operator is watching NF deployment. But then plus all your extension, which is going to be on parameter refs. And that would be a default controllers that would be generated on your reconciler that we generated as part of that code. And then how we design this so that you have stubs and so on, they can add in terms of parsing the parameter refs, in terms of like extracting something from NF deployments, and then updated statuses. Those are things that we probably presented as form as a library or something. So that's the second part. Go ahead, Wim.
Yeah, to my point earlier, this is already an opinionated view on how to do it, because now this means that you are generating code.
Mm-hmm.
Which
so
in my view,
all SDK by default is opinionated, right? So
yeah,
when you build it, it's also opinionated.
If you agreed in my previous point that I said no code,
okay,
then this is this is not what this is.
No, I'm very open to it. So if you can.
So that's why I'm saying is like this is a way to potentially achieve it, but it's not the only.
I'm not saying you have to do this. So if you have a way of doing no code, and then further lower the entry barrier, I have no opinions on doing this. The end goal is still the operators watching NF deployment. Something
for sure. There's no discussion about it.
The next part of this business logic, which is for day one, translating NF deployment plus vendor extensions into what is needed for values.yaml. So if this whole thing can be either like another YAML or some other things that you can do, I would love to see that actually. There's no reason.
Actually, if you're honest today, just take crossplane. It will do it for you today.
Oh, it does? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. What is it watching though? So for us, the really big special thing is we have to watch NF deployment, because we want to.
Yeah,
we want to
watch NF deployment.
Yeah, but we also want to get an NF deployment status back out of all.
Yes, it will do that for you. Yeah, it will add a watch to NF deployment, similar to as a controller does. So basically, they build on top of on top of controller runtime.
I'm not that familiar with crossplane, so if they have that, that would be great. That would be awesome.
Yeah.
I'm okay integrating that. And then so what do they have to do then? They're writing some sort of map.
You just write a YAML file.
Write the YAML file so the input is NF deployment plus
your
whatever.
business logic. Your business logic.
But then that business logic is written in just YAML.
Yes.
Okay. No, this is exactly what we want. So if you have that, great. I mean, day two is a different story, but then at least to do this.
I'm not an expert either, but some people in Nokia use it quite a bit. So it does the job for this.
As I said, I don't do that if this is harder. So if it's something easier,
you don't even have to do anything. Just use it.
Yeah, use it would be great. Yeah. No, I'm very open. I don't have any strong design opinions.
You're talking on mute, I think, Steven, or it's me or you. I don't know.
Am I on mute already?
No, I can hear you.
Oh, okay. Because I see the green button moving, so it seems like I'm talking to a mic. Okay.
But is that a separate POC activity then, to experiment with crossplane as an alternative, or?
Yeah, but this only pertains to the business logic. So what Wim was suggesting is we can use a crossplane or something like that to make the business logic part, which right now for at least for our 3 SDK is purely translation of the input COUts into the values.yaml that is needed for Helm. So that if that piece could be done by another project, and the developers only have to write like a YAML, then that would be awesome. I would love to have that. Because the SDK without writing code would be like the ultimate goal, at least for some operations. Not obviously not all operations are doable, but at least for some operations, that would be great. Actually, I'm very open to that. I'm hoping other people are open to that too. I mean, I don't dictate a project, but hopefully the other vendor representatives are great. Are thinking this is a good idea also, that we can do the POC with that and then see. At least as easy, the simplistic stuff the 3.5 GC is made of, it should be able to satisfy it. If you can't even do 3.5 GC, then forget it, right? Because I'm sure vendor Helm charts are way more complicated than 3.5 GC, than the Choice 5GS 3.5 GC. So we'll definitely at least have to prove that it works on that scenario. But yeah, I'm open to that. If I don't have to write code, that'd be great. Yeah, so this is something to explore. So if you have Vim, if you have more, okay, yeah, Vim, if you have more information, you can file a task under this too. So we can.
Yeah, I'm not. I'm not an expert myself, but
Okay.
I'll ask someone here
Okay,
to
that'd be
look
great.
at it. But
That would
they
be
basically say that you can do that type of stuff with it. So it's basically you basically write templates.
Yeah, because this is just a translation for now, anyway, for R3.
Correct. So for that, crossplane is perfect.
Okay. Yeah, no, it would be great to have. Yeah, for sure. And then the next one is the handling of the CLDs or the extensions. So you obviously, by leveraging the CLI and the core, not just the CLI, the execution of that CLI from either operator SDK or QBuilder, you should be able to define the CLs, able to generate YAMLs off of the CL. The other thing is your vendor extension logic, the business logic. How would you integrate that? So previously, I said that you may have to implement it with code on that business logic. Vim said maybe not. So if we don't, then there's also a YAML input to. So you can just input the YAML to crossplane and runtime, I'm guessing, in this case. So it's not a compile time thing where you generate code through crossplane, right? So it's crossplane running, and then give them a YAML, and they'll do a translation, I'm guessing. So in that case, all we have to do for SDK is bundle that YAML, the mapping YAML, if you will, if you say that, and then put it into the package. Cool. Definitely read about that. I can update things based on this reading. So we read after, not right now. Okay, so this is one task, which is how do you take vendors extension and then realize that extension somehow. So either my train of thoughts earlier was using code. So you have to compile, you have to implement probably stub libraries, and then compile the operators and push it into Docker. But then if it's just a YAML, you just bundle, which is much easier. So that's one piece of the task. The next one is obviously we need to do generating packages. There's CapGen, I think that's already in place, so we can see how to leverage this. And then as we said earlier, there's at least 2 packages that will be generated. One of them is for your operator stuff, everything that is needed before deployment can happen. That's including your vendor extension CLD, so we have to load the CLD into workload cluster, and at least some annotations to know that you are which version of NF deployment you're using, v1 alpha 1, v1 alpha 2, whatever, or v1, which will not reach until a very long time. So which one you're using, so we'll know which one is loaded onto workload clusters. So all the prep and obviously bring up your operator. All this prep work needs to be in that package to deploy all the things that are needed before you can do a deployment. And that will be generated by this, by the SDK. And then the NF package, because your vendor extension CLs are part of the vendor package, and the particular version of the NF deployment that you use to generate this is also part of the NF package. So you probably have to issue a command to just grab them. It shouldn't be that bad. The SDK can generate a dummy CL for you. And then obviously specialization is or human is the one to input the correct parameters during runtime or deploy time. And the next one we're talking about, we have to, let's say we use Flux, which so far it seems like that's what we are converging on. Then we have to ensure that we can deploy all the NFs using Flux. One and all is pretty much the same operation, I'm sure, but yeah, we have to ensure that they all work. And then those values.yamls becomes our gold standards that we're thriving towards for inputting. And then we'll see from those how to translate NF deployments and things to that. And so that's more or less a POC to make sure. But then if you have sample values.yaml, we should push it to the tree. And then finally, not finally, on the next one actually, not finally yet. The next one is the whole thing is done for FreeFileGC for R3 as a validations. So as we build the SDK, as we build a certain version of the SDK, we can start creating the FreeFileGC operator for AMF, UPF, and SMF. UPF first, I would imagine, and then all the other ones that aren't done by operators it should be deployed directly from the pipeline, which I don't think that changed. Or we can change that actually. We can probably push that down to use the Helm charts to deploy it. So it's a consistent deploy model for things that do not need an operators. But then it's basically just Helm installations. Then we can shift all the things down to the workload clusters, and then we build a FreeFileGC operator that will eventually replace the current one for R3. And because we have that opportunity, there are certain things that we can add onto specializations. One of them obviously is the 3GPP parameters that we talked about. We can conveniently integrate that, and then we want to see how that would work. On an SDK perspective, I think last week Wim and I very lightly touch upon this, which is just add it into an injector, I guess, in this case, and then point the cap functions to that, and then maybe we add a package conditions, so we make sure that this is resolved before we deploy it. So all of this should be done by the SDK, meaning that the encoding of the package conditions and adding that cap functions as the thing that you want to use as an injector or mutator. Those things should be.
Why do we need this, Stephen?
This is I thought the 3GPP you have to annotate that I need a 3GPP parameters on my package, right?
No.
No. But how do you know I need it?
Wait, so yeah, so okay, wait, so you sorry, I was wrong. So you made it, so you have to just
so if I deploy AMF first, so that there's PLMN somewhere in the package. So the SMF package comes in. The SMF package sort of have to tell you that I would, if you already have a PLMN configured, please inject it into this CL, right? And then
wait, so today, so the piece that we the piece that we are, the reason you have to do this right now, right, is that we don't do injection, right? So what we did in R2, so we added that PLM and CR inside of the package statically, and now you have to annotate. If you do the injection, this will happen for you.
Yeah, but then you still need to put the injector cap functions, which cap is doing.
No, the injector is a generic function which is completely agnostic, right? So you don't. So you basically point, okay, I need the CR and stuff like that.
And, right? and then you have to tell them that I'm taking PLMN into this replace into this PLMN parameters, right? So you still have to configure the injector.
Yes, but what I'm trying to get to, it's not specific to the SDK.
Oh, no. So the SDK help you talk about that, because when you are so if you're a vendor, you are a vendor, but you're a vendor trying to onboard, one of the design that you're looking at is, I like to get the 3GPP parameters on my SMF package. So you
are you as a vendor doing that or as an operator doing that? So for me, I have a question that this should be, because typically the operator defines the set of configuration that they want to use for their specific environment, right? It's not the vendor gives you, here are all the configuration knobs you get, right? For this environment, okay, the operator will select the one you have. So it's not going to be, that's my challenge that I have. It's like, I don't see how you can help as much, because you're basically going to build a tool for every vendor, for every operator instance, which is a bit different.
So you're saying, Wim, that we deliver Helm charts as a vendor, and then the network operators would decide how to build that using the SDK, how to build the kind of
Yeah,
abstraction.
I don't know if I agree with that too much, because vendor has knowledge of what, I mean, forget about the 3GPP specific example, but then vendor has knowledge on what kind of optimizations they can do in terms of if something is inputted from one, we should be able to leverage this, for example, and then maybe they would know that I need something from a general database pool or something like this. So I would imagine the SDK needs to have a hook for them to. So we're not helping them write in CAP functions, but then there probably is a hook to tell them a more generic sense. Vendors should be able to specify when going through a pipeline, there's certain input that I think we can automate. And then maybe they already loaded.
But we had this conversation before, and I thought we decided to not go there yet, right? Because see, what you're discussing here is package altering, right? It's basically, and for me, it's not a vendor; it's a combination. If you look to what we did in R1, how is the package getting established? It's a combination of vendor, operator, and some other experts, right, that are involved. So it can be a system integrator or whatever, right? So what you're discussing here is that part. So why do we try to put that as part of the SDK? For me, that's a completely different thing.
The SDK is just eased up, so there are certain things where vendors can create, because vendor may write their own CAP functions, and then they would say that embedding inside this CAP functions, it should be executing my CAP functions off of this package, and then we just kind of use the CLI to just help you add it in, if you will, or.
But so I see what I don't get, Stephen, is this, right? If a vendor writes a CAP function, he should do it inside of the SDK on the workload cluster. Why should he write a CAP function in the management cluster for it?
There are different roads though, right? Because the CAP function is there to take the CL embedded inside the package, and then trying to fetch something that is doable on management cluster, right?
But fetch, but doesn't see fetch, yes, but that's a very generic thing that is not.
Fetch is a controller job, but then once the input is available, a CAP function executed so that the vendor knows that input is here to replace.
But we have that in the config CR, right? So today we have the way that we architected so far is we have like this generic meta CR that basically is a way to convey information. And if you look to it, then the NF deployment together with config CR using the reference is consumed by the workload cluster, and then your SDK interprets that. There is nothing we need in the management cluster and specialization that does something to interpret 3GPP parameters. There's no value there.
No. So yeah, 3GPP. Well, 3GPP is basically somehow, some way you tell people that we need to get that parameter. But then if the vendor specific input, and then vendors are actually writing.
You just pass it through the vendor because you pass it through, right? It's a cut through thing. Why do
so your thinking is we're not having any vendor logics at all on management cluster.
No.
Okay. Yeah, because that would be that's the goal of this value. The value of this is to, if there's something that vendor is specifically looking for, and then they could.
Because see, we have anyhow vendor packages, right? So the packages itself might be vendor specific, right? So there might be vendor specific data inside of that package. But okay, that's what I'm saying is part of package altering, right? And whether that is the vendor that does that or a combination of multiple roles that does that, that will depending on the deployment. What I'm trying to say is that
this is the thing, right? So this is more like a this is my logic. You ask we allow vendors to add CLDs for the extensions into the package. The CLs are all dummies on the package. I was just picturing that within the pipeline, that we should allow vendors to have hooks that they can automate the input on their particular CLs.
But the only thing you need to
before
do
they
is say,
become
okay, I need this CR in the package, and that's it, right? There's no
with no input though. So at that point, one of the value of Porch is to automate inputs if there's input. So we want to take advantage of that if there's vendor specific logic that we can actually leverage, or if vendor wants to actually drop in the controllers that sits on management cluster. I know it doesn't happen today, but then maybe in the future. So I mean just
I would say this is that's a step too far, I think, for now. Let's see. Let's first focus on getting an SDK.
No. That's why I put it as the last thing, because this is more like, hey, we may be able to allow to do this, but then it's more like a stretch.
I don't think we might need. I'm not convinced that we need this.
Okay. So we are pretty much at time. So
yeah.
So what I'm asking is, hopefully, folks that are interested, please go ahead and take issues or add more issues that you see fit under this big epic, so we can track it. And then weekly basis we'll start to actually talk about how to iterate and execute. As we said, one of the good milestone would be ONE Summit. Around several weeks before, 1 or 2 weeks before ONE Summit, we should do a full integrations and demonstrations. That would be a very good goal.
Thanks, Steve.
Okay,
it's a good goal to have. Thank you so much. Yeah, have a good one, everyone. I think we need to start now for that. Yeah, just wanted to.
Yes. Cool. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Anything else? Anything else for anyone? Okay. Thanks.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks,
Thanks, Steve.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.